In this video, I want to have a look at how we can calculate the gradient of a line. So first off, we use the letter m to represent the gradient, so a lowercase m. Earlier we were using a capital M to represent the midpoint, so this is a lowercase m this time. So to find the gradient of a line, we use the formula that m equals the rise over run. Now what that means is if we have a line here, if we have 2 points on that line, so say here and here, then we can draw a right-angled triangle between them to figure out how far up we've moved and how far across we've moved to get from one point to the other. So if we draw in a right-angled triangle, then the length of this side of the triangle would be our rise, and the length of that horizontal side would be the run. Now you can see that this line and this second line here are both positive, they both have a positive gradient, but this one here is steeper than this one is. And if we draw in our right-angled triangle for this one, we can start to see why. So in this one we have our rise and our run. And you can see for this one here that our rise and our run are approximately the same length, whereas here the run is much longer than the rise. So because it hasn't moved up as much as it's moved across, that means that our gradient is going to be smaller. And our last one here, we do the same thing. We have 2 points on there. I'm going to draw a right-angled triangle, but we can see from the direction that the line's going that this is going to have a negative gradient this time. So we'd put a negative in front of it, and then we'd have still that rise over run. So let's have a look at some examples. So in these ones, the right-angled triangles have already been drawn in for us. If they hadn't been, we'd have to draw them in ourselves. And they've also already found the length of the rise and the run. So our gradient for this first one, we know that it's positive, so that's always the first thing you look for. So it's a positive gradient. Our rise is 2 and our run is 6. So we'd have 2 over 6, and we can simplify that down to 1/3. For this second example here, we're going to have m equals, now look at it first, is it positive or is it negative? So because it's going up to the left, it's going to have a negative gradient, so we'll put a minus, and then we're going to have our rise over our run, so 8 over 4. Now 8 over 4 simplifies down to 2, so our gradient for this line is going to be -2. So that's an introduction to calculating the gradient.